everybody. Welcome back to the Sonship Sports Channel. Welcome to the ATG, All Things Gridiron. My brother from another mother, Casey, joins us. How you doing, Casey?
We are doing well, sweating in the heat as everybody else is across America.
Yeah, it's a little warm this year. I don't know if for us Wisconsinites, if you guys cannot tell, Casey and I are both from the land of milk and honey, and we're a couple of big guys too, and we sweat easily. And so when where we live now, let's just say each one of our climates are a little bit warmer than Green Bay, Wisconsin, and it got warm fast this year. I wasn't used to 100-degree days in the beginning of June, but it snuck up on me quick.
Yeah, we went from like 70s where we should have been in the 80s, and then we skipped the 80s and went straight to 90s.
Yeah, we had spring for about 11 seconds,
Exactly.
And then it went right from crappy weather into here's 100 degrees, and now my grass is yellow. So
yeah,
that's
kind of
where we're at.
We keep getting so much rain.
Oh yeah. Well, we got a bunch of rain this past week, but we needed it because everything else was toasted.
We don't need it. All right, well, we're here for football.
Yes, we are here for football. And if you guys haven't already guessed, we are going to talk about the state of the Green Bay Packers. Now, Casey and I, and yes, I'm repping with my Jair Alexander jersey. He's obviously, in my personal opinion, the most talented player on the football field for Green Bay right now. His record against the number one receivers last year, when Joe Barry finally got his head out of his fourth point of contact and allowed Green Bay to play more man up in the secondary, and Jair was able to cover people, those numbers were video game ridiculous numbers. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he shut out guys like Justin Jefferson and Terry McLaurin and CeeDee Lamb, and it's like, holy cow, why were we not doing this in week one? So I was, I'm definitely repping the Alexander jersey. But you know what? That's a great question to start things out with, because everybody always talks about how our defense has underperformed for the last, quite frankly, several years. And they wouldn't be wrong. I mean, it's one of those things where how many first rounders do we have on that defense now? There's first rounders at every level. There's a couple of them in the secondary. There's a couple of them in our linebacking core, in our pass rushing core, on our defensive line. I mean, Wyatt and Clark are both first rounders. Quay Walker and Lucas Van Ness and Rashawn Gary, they're first rounders. Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, all first round draft picks. Why is this not the best defense in football, Casey?
Well, wasn't Savage a first rounder too?
Yes, Darnell Savage, also first round draft pick. Now, he's obviously one he dropped off a little bit last year and then came on a little stronger at the end of the year, won his job back from Rudy Ford. Now, Rudy Ford's been kind of bumped over to that other safety position to possibly compete with some of the new guys like Tavarius Moore and Jonathan Owens, who they picked up from Houston. And so we'll kind of see what that safety room looks like. But we'll talk about the safety room a little bit later. But this defense, what's the deal?
I really think it's coaching. I mean, you got athletes, you got guys that can go sideline to sideline. We haven't had that since, let's just say AJ Hawk, maybe, Barnett. These guys can flat out move, and I feel like you're just playing with kid gloves. You gotta let these guys do their thing. They know the system. But Barry I don't know if it's Barry or LaFleur or whoever, but somebody's in love with zone, and I hate it.
Yeah. Why would you pay Jair Alexander to be the highest paid shutdown corner in the league and then make him play zone?
Right.
I mean, you got to ask yourself that question. If you're a Green Bay Packers fan, which you and I both are, and we're watching this team play for largely the first 2/3 of the season, nothing but zone, and they're getting shredded at every level.
Absolutely.
Now, granted, there were some injuries. Losing Rashawn Gary hurt, losing Eric Stokes hurt. They should both be back. I know they're starting the season on the PUP, but I know that that Packer Nation and as well as the training staff is hopeful that one or both of them may be back for week one. They may not be on a full snap count week one,
Right.
but if we can get Rashawn Gary in there on third downs, I'll be happy. If we can bring Eric Stokes in there on some dime packages and things like that, week 1 and 2 to kind of ease them back in, we've got depth and talent. Again, like I said, like you said, the coaching is kind of what puzzles me. Now, last year, and I think it started with that Vikings game, we started seeing more man. What do you think happened? Do you think LaFleur got a call from Gutekunst or somebody got a call from Mark Murphy and somebody said, what the hell are you guys doing? Why are we playing all this zone and we've got the best shutdown corner in football?
I think LaFleur early on with, thought we'd be able to right the ship, so to speak, and get ourselves back in a good position to make the playoffs. And when it looked, when we got to the Vikings game, it was pretty clear that this is going to be the tipping point. We're either going to go on a winning streak or we're going home early. And I think that's where he was like, look, let the boys play. Let's see what happens, because at this point we're already going home. So let's see what a little man defense can do. And I think they played better.
Well, yeah, it's a bit frustrating because in those wins that they had going down the stretch, they beat teams like the Vikings, the Cowboys, at Miami, where Green Bay always plays bad.
True.
They beat some good teams down the stretch when they switched up their defense. Now, obviously, we stumbled again against the Lions in the last game of the season, but I can't put that one on the defense. That was we'll get into that a little bit later. But if Green Bay plays the style of defense starting out in 2023 that they ended with in 2022, and now you get Gary Stokes and you add someone like a Lucas Van Ness and a couple of those later round depth chart pieces for the defensive line, you add that to it. What do you think this defense could do this year?
I think it could be good enough that Jordan Love and the offense may need to score about 17 points a game to be winners.
Yeah.
I think what could really put a wrinkle in opposing offenses is if you use Lucas Van Ness as an interior D lineman.
Oh yeah, which you'll be he is mobile enough.
He's big enough.
Be able to. Yeah, you can shift him. He's big enough too. He's what, 275.
Mm-hmm.
So that's big enough to be an interior defensive lineman in a 3-4.
Exactly.
You shift him down, especially in passing downs or something, and you put him in the middle there as one of your interior pass. Because if you have guys like Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith and Kingsley Enagbare and a couple of these, even somebody like Hollins, who had a really nice season for them, and you put them on the outsides, that could be a really, really disruptive. I think that in passing downs, Green Bay is going to be able to have 4 guys that can get after the passer.
No doubt.
Because let's be honest here. Yes, Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt are supposed to be, they're the first round draft picks.
Sure.
On a passing down, Slayton's not going to be in there. He's like 300 and
he's the run stuffer.
He's massive. He's going to be the run stuffer, and I was pleased with Slayton, but he's not going to be in there on passing downs. Wyatt and Clark are some shifty, quick, big guys.
I was just going to say, they're big guys, but they can move,
Yeah. Again, in that 5-game stretch last year, there was a few times that I saw the rookie Devontae Wyatt chase some guys down behind the line. Like, guys, he's not supposed to catch at his size.
No, I think he really came on towards the end of the season. I don't know if it was just because, we started going more man and they were turning him loose, or if he was just starting to, grasp what the defensive scheme was. But I feel like he started to really show the player that the Packers drafted, the last probably 5 games or so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously somebody in the room thinks he does because they let Dean Lowry, or not, they let Dean Lowry walk in the
Yep.
offseason, who's with the Vikings now. But that that wasn't a Lowry decision. That was a Green Bay Packer decision. It's like, hey, first of all, this guy is less expensive than you are right now, Dean, and we think he's better than you at this point going into year 2, and so they let him walk. And then of course they draft. They still have Ford in there behind Slayton as a backup nose tackle, and then they got, in my opinion, they got a couple of nice pieces with Colby. Is it? Yeah, it's Colby Wooden and Carl Brooks. What do you think about those two guys? A fourth rounder and a sixth rounder.
Um, I mean, I'm always skeptical when it comes to rookies because, you know, going from college to pros is one thing. Um, you never know. I mean, look how many first round busts, come out of the draft. So, and traditionally, the Packers always seem to have really good luck with those late round and undrafted guys. But, Carl Brooks, he looked impressive. I think, Jonathan Ford coming out of Miami, he's going to be playing good college teams. Um, Brooks coming out of Bowling Green, his stats looked good, but it's Bowling Green. It's not like he was playing for Florida or Georgia.
No,
Um,
you're absolutely right about that. The one thing I will say about Brooks, though, is even though he did play for Bowling Green, he played for one of those smaller schools that you don't hear a whole lot about. But I was shocked by the amount of people from different organizations that said they were absolutely stunned that Carl Brooks lasted until the 6th round. And they said the same thing. They said it must have been the Bowling Green thing. But there were his statistics. If you look at his stats the last year or two he was in Bowling Green, they're very Khalil Mack-esque when you look at the numbers and you just compare. And remember, Khalil Mack went to Buffalo.
he did.
He didn't go to a big school either.
Nope.
And Carl Brooks's numbers were very, very, very similar. And that was another thing. They said he's same size as well. Carl Brooks is 296 pounds.
Yeah.
But he's one of those guys that is quick enough that you almost want him in there on passing downs if he's your best option, because he's not just a big body you stick in the middle that takes up space. That's more of a TJ Slayton or a Jonathan Ford type. They're not going to be the fleet of foot. Carl Brooks is somebody that I'm looking to see, what does this kid actually have? Because there's a lot of people, and I know Notre Dame. I know Green Bay is known for this. They are known for finding that value in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds.
Yep.
So I'm going to be really excited to see what Brooks looks like once training camp and the preseason games start, and we'll see what he has. But there's kind of it's a good segue into what we're talking about. The defensive line for Green Bay has long been, let's just say, the Achilles heel. Pass rush is great. Secondary is great. The defensive line, it always seems like they get gouged on the ground from time to time. And that's, one of my big concerns is now that we've got this revamped defensive line, you finally stick Slayton in there at nose.
Yep.
You have a perennial Pro Bowler in Kenny Clark in there. Now you have first-round draft pick Devontae Wyatt. Then you had a couple of guys like, Colby Wooden out of Auburn, and he was the
Wooden.
4th rounder out of Auburn, and Carl Brooks out of Bowling Green. Could Green Bay's defensive line, at least I think they're expecting it, could they be a much improved crew over last year?
Well, I think that's almost a no doubter. Just even from the depth standpoint, you got to. I think we really reloaded with these late round picks with uh, what is it, Wooden from Auburn.
Yep.
Yeah, and Brooks and Ford, those guys, they're young, they're going to be hungry, and I mean, Slayton is a big body.
Yes.
Do we keep
He's
him?
out of Florida, isn't he?
I think so. I think it's an SEC school, but I don't know. Well, I mean, really, these guys are just there to stuff the run and eat up blockers. In the defense that we run,
Right.
we're looking. They're just there to basically take the hits so we can get some pass rush.
They're
So
definitely first down guys.
yeah,
They're first down guys. Very seldom do you see NFL teams now not in some form of a nickel defense. A lot of times,
a
even on
dime.
first downs.
Yeah.
I mean, you see a 4-3 defense very often, or very seldom, are all three linebackers on the field at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You see a 3-4 defense. Very seldom are all three defensive linemen on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, if you know it's going to be a running play, or you're playing against a team like, say, the Tennessee Titans, who run the ball an abnormal amount of time, TJ Slayton's going to get a lot more snaps.
Sure.
But when they play the Chiefs,
yeah, forget it.
Slayton's going to get like six snaps a game, as well he should at that point.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you there. Everyone wants that hybrid safety linebacker like a Buda Baker, somebody who's got a little size, got some good speed, who's got a good tackling ability. And that's what they want to roll in your nickel and dime packages, because it lets you put your good speedsters out there to cover the wide receivers, and you still kind of protecting yourself against the run. So definitely.
All right. Well, let's talk for a second about Green Bay's inside linebackers. So the starters, we're assuming, and I would say it's a fair assessment, are going to be Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker.
Love it, if he's not boneheaded.
Yes, Quay Walker, second-year guy. I think obviously there needs to be some. Hopefully there already has been some discussions about attitude and how you conduct yourself on the field and things of that nature. But when I saw that kid last year go sideline to sideline,
he's nasty.
The word scary comes to mind.
Yep.
What do you think about the athletic traits of Quay Walker?
I think he's an absolute freak. I mean, I don't know that we have seen a linebacker in Green Bay able to go sideline to sideline that fast ever.
Right.
I mean, he's got all the tools. He can even cover, And as a rookie, they've really put him out on an island covering running backs and tight ends, and I was really surprised at that. But he kind of held his own, especially for a rookie, which was impressive. Then you put Devondre Campbell back there. You got that veteran leadership, the experience. He's going to be the one calling the defenses. So I think that'll even calm Walker down a little bit. And hopefully, we just let him play football and not have to worry about all the intangibles and getting everybody set and getting the defense called. So I expect and hope for much bigger things from him, which is really saying something, because I thought he had a very good rookie season.
Oh, so did I. And let's remember, Quay Walker had to play a lot last year without Big Brother.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, Devondre Campbell missed some time, and Quay Walker had to grow up fast. And so anytime you throw a kid in there, what is he, 20 years old? I mean, 20, 21, 22, that age range, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, dude, you're calling our defense.
Right.
You're the main inside backer now. And you throw him in that kind of a situation. What's that?
I said, forget that you were in high school 3 years ago.
Right, exactly. Forget you're in high school 3 years ago. We need you to stop Tom Brady now and call the right defense. So, those kinds of things for someone that, but now he has that experience. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad he's got that experience. It's kind of like we talk about the offensive line, and we'll get to them later. But with the injuries that Green Bay's offensive line has had in the last 2 or 3 years, there's a lot of guys that have quite a few credible snaps that aren't starters on the depth chart right now.
Right.
And I think that Devondre Campbell, when he's healthy, is probably our best linebacker. I mean, he was a Pro Bowler 2 years ago.
And he just turned 30.
Yeah, just turned 30. The only guy on the defense who's 30, by the way. Everybody else that's a starter, and most of our immediate backups are all in their 20s, and a lot of them in their early 20s. Yeah. So that defense is only going to get better. So the backups maybe a little thin at inside linebacker. I mean, yeah, we've got Quay Walker and we've got Devondre Campbell. They're the starters. Eric Wilson has always been a nice special teams piece. I'd like to see a big jump out of Isaiah McDuffie.
I was just going to say, I like McDuffie. I hope that he, starts to round out as a good, solid player, because he's gotten a lot of snaps over the last 2 years now.
Oh, yeah. He's played quite a few snaps, and a lot of people don't know this. I don't know if he is the all-time leader in tackles at Boston College, but I heard something to that effect. Like he's got some records at Boston College. He was an amazing college football player.
That's impressive.
So then the other guy who I've always been intrigued by, going back to last year, is you talked about the hybrid safety.
Oh, you're going to say it, aren't you?
Tariq Carpenter.
I knew that's where you're going. I have real high hopes for this kid. I think he's got the perfect size, speed combo to play that hybrid role. I just need him to put it all together mentally, and man, he's to me, he is a very exciting prospect.
So I'm looking something up right now, if you guys can't tell. Both Tariq Carpenter and Quay Walker run 4.52 40s, which isn't blazing fast, but Tariq Carpenter's 230 pounds. So somebody going 230 that runs in, or somebody that's 230 pounds going 4.5 that's going to hurt a little bit. Quay Walker's 241. So, it's not blazing fast, but if you're running 4.52, you're still picking them up and putting them down. I can't run that fast.
Not on my best day.
No, but Tariq Carpenter, that comes out of Georgia Tech, and a lot of people don't realize this, even Packer fans that are watching, he was a 4-year starter at Georgia Tech. Started as a freshman, and was, best player on their defense for many, many seasons. So his athletic ability jumps off the screen at you. I think it's just, and he played in the ACC, so he played against some, Clemson and Florida State and some of these teams as well. So it's nice to have at least the athletic ability. As coaches, like you brought up earlier, they need to make sure that these guys get the training and the coaching that they need to be able to take the next step. My next position that I'm going to bring up, even though Jair Alexander is my favorite player on the defense right now, my favorite position on the defense is edge rusher.
Oh yeah, and on paper, we're stacked.
Yeah, loaded. Yeah, loaded.
Rashawn Gary, coming out of Michigan, I remember, the pundits were like, well, he has some flashes of brilliance, but he doesn't have the every down motor. I don't know where that kid was, because in Green Bay, he's been nothing but motor.
Yeah, he's at this point now, when he's healthy, he's a game wrecker.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, he's I think you throw him in the, in the maybe he's not quite TJ Watt or Myles Garrett yet, but he ain't far behind.
No.
I would say if they're the top tier in the NFL, Gary's at least in the second tier.
Yeah,
that's
fair.
He's definitely the injury to Rashawn Gary last year was horrible, because the season he was having up until the point where he got hurt in that, I believe it was that game against Detroit, the first game, he was having a career year. It was just and no double team. It didn't matter. You couldn't stop him.
No, and then you double team him, and Preston was coming off the other edge. You shift your coverage, or roll a tight end or a back over to Preston, and Gary's going to be. He was beating double teams.
Right, right, and then you add Lucas Van Ness, who looks like he's just made to be a Green Bay Packer, doesn't he?
I mean, he does. I don't want to. Push the hype, but he looks like a bigger version of Clay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like, bloodline max.
Yeah. And then you got him playing the same position, possibly even shifting inside on some downs. It's like, this kid you put him out there, you put Gary, you put Preston. Gosh.
Well, and let's not forget about some of those real nice depth pieces. Kingsley Enagbare and Justin Hollins played some really nice football for Green Bay last year down that stretch run with Rashawn Gary hurt. Both of them got themselves some sacks and definitely a lot of QB pressures.
Yep, absolutely.
Those were definitely some nice pieces. And then in a previous episode, you and I mentioned Mr. Brenton Cox, who was, like I said, he, for his career in college football, had an over 30% pressure rating. That's insane because, like I said, Lucas Van Ness was only above 30 his last year in college. The previous season, he was only at 16%.
Right. But
so
Cox has got I don't know if it was just personality conflicts or what, but he's got to make sure the mental part of his game is ready. That he's ready to be a professional football player. And,
correct.
If he is, because he does have that nasty streak, and you want that on the field. I think if you look at the depth charts, they've got him back or low on the depth charts. I don't think he's going to stay there.
Yeah, they have Brenton Cox right now. I think it's third or fourth string on the depth chart.
Yeah.
But when I look at the rest of our pass rushers, who's he going to leapfrog? I mean, is he going to leapfrog Enagbare? I look for Enagbare to have a sophomore jump. I mean, as well as he played last year, is he going to leapfrog Van Ness? Probably not. Is he going to leapfrog Justin Hollins? Maybe.
Yeah.
Is this the year Preston Smith finally falls off a cliff, or his talent level does?
Let's hope not.
No, let's hope not. But that, I would say, as far as depth, you could make an argument that Green Bay has 6 good pass rushers right now. I mean, 6 guys that can legitimately claim they can get after the quarterback. Now, I'm not saying that, all 6 of them are going to be, Pro Bowl caliber.
No.
But Justin Hollins played a lot of meaningful football for the Rams before they cut him.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
But the Rams cut everybody last year.
Yeah, that's true. Cost cutting.
So he played a lot of meaningful football for them. So anyway, moving on. The next room, I think, is equally as deep. Not the secondary room, but the cornerback room. Because those are 2 different rooms right now. The secondary as a whole, I have some questions on. I don't have questions about our cornerback room.
No, not at all. This is an area that for the last 2, possibly 3 years, the Packers haven't had a whole lot of questions, and in this room or at this position, and I don't see it changing anything. Maybe if we move, one of these DBs over to a safety position, but just the way they're, put down on paper today, no. You've got your bookends at corners, whether you want to go with Stokes or Alexander. I mean, it's just solid play. Obviously, you could put Rasul Douglas out there, which we did last year since Stokes was out. But I think if Jonathan Owens doesn't step up in safety and claim that starting position opposite of Savage, I think Rasul Douglas moves to safety.
Well, I think they may have to do that. You've got basically Jonathan Owens and Rudy Ford fighting for that other safety position opposite Darnell Savage. Darnell Savage, first-round draft pick, had some bad moments last year, got benched, came back, won his job back. I
think he's in a prove-it year, though.
Yes, absolutely. He's in a prove-it year. I still have faith in Savage. I think Savage can get it done as a safety. He had some confidence issues last year, so we've got to miss too many tackles, obviously, and what found himself not in the right place all the time. Hell of an athlete, though. I mean, Savage's problem isn't athletic ability. He's another one of those guys that physically, as I keep referring to what John Kuhn says, Green Bay is younger, faster, bigger, and stronger than I've ever seen them. So this team is loaded with athleticism. They just got to put it together. But yes, for the cornerbacks, I think that you don't draft Eric Stokes with a first-round draft pick to have him be your third boundary cornerback.
Right.
No,
right.
You want him. You want Eric opposite Jair. Those are your two bookends in a perfect world. And Rasul Douglas would be your third cornerback in that situation. So they're wanting Eric Stokes to step up after injury. God knows he's fast enough to play the position.
Yes.
And then the other nice piece that we keep hearing about with what's been going on with the mini camps and the OTAs and things like that. Another name that we heard a lot last year, but we heard it for a much different reason. Kick returns, and that's Keyshawn Nixon. He has opened a lot of eyes in the slot corner role this year, and because of that may allow Rasul Douglas to possibly shift over to that free safety role opposite Darnell Savage. Because Douglas is big enough to do it. Douglas is 210 pounds. He's the size of a safety or an extremely big cornerback. But if Stokes is playing well and the slot is held down by Keyshawn Nixon, which they think that he's going to be able to perform at a level in the slot that he's already performing as a kick returner, then maybe you do go ahead and pull the trigger and make Rasul Douglas a safety.
I mean, why not? He fits in, but it's all, like you said, though, it's all about, how it plays out in training camp and during, the games over the summer here when I don't want to say they're meaningless games, but, for all intents and purposes, it's just filler, let's say.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, nothing really matters until you're on the field with the enemy.
Exactly.
Even preseason games. And granted, we're going to see a lot of guys in the Green Bay preseason that, obviously starting with our new starting quarterback, that need time out there. Because we talked about only one player on the defensive side of the ball, and we're about to get the offensive side of the ball, but the offense only has one player that is over the age of 30 as well, and that's David Bakhtiari, the left tackle, and he's only 31. It's not like – it seems like with all the injuries he's had, you think Bakhtiari's like 38. He's not. Dave Bakhtiari is 31, and if that knee holds up, may have 5 or 6 good years in him because, as you well know, offensive linemen tend to play a little bit longer than skill position guys do. Because
he's not going to be playing in Green Bay, though.
What's that?
I said he's not going to be playing in Green Bay, though.
Yeah, again, like I told everybody, this might be one area where I might disagree with you. Now, if he stays in Green Bay, they're going to have to restructure his contract because they're set to pay him $40 million next year, and no offensive tackle is getting $40 million. What's that?
We can't afford that cap hit.
Well, yeah, but they won't.
But we're
Green
not
Bay
going
won't
to do it. No.
Yeah, we next year, if we play our cards right, we're going to have well over $50 million in cap space. And if Bakhtiari restructures his deal, we could have it close to 75. So
that's insane.
Not only will Green Bay 65% chance have 2 first-round draft picks, they may have upwards of $50 to $70 million in cap space to, so maybe you don't need to use a first round draft pick on a new left tackle or a safety. Maybe you find a good one in his mid-20s just hitting his stride in free agency. That would be nice too. And then you use that other first round draft pick on something else. So, I like where the future of this team is at, as far as youth, salary cap, and draft capital. The big question, and we're going to get to him in just a little bit, is going to be that quarterback room. The last thing I wanted to talk about with the defense, obviously, that safety room. Darnell Savage, I think probably the most talented out of the group. Rudy Ford had some nice flashes last year. In a conversation we just had, you had brought up his game against the Cowboys. Rudy Ford looked great in that game.
Yes,
Jonathan Owens has had some very nice minutes for the Houston Texans. And Tavarius Moore is a special teams guru from San Francisco that could provide some nice depth. But someone in that safety room is going to have to step up and be the reliable one, like Adrian Amos was for us for a good, 4 or 5 seasons there, before he kind of fell off a cliff himself last year and didn't play up to anywhere near what we had come to depend on Adrian Amos in the previous seasons. So I'm looking for someone to grab that Adrian Amos role this coming season. And if they don't, then obviously free agency and draft capital is going to be where we need to look for that in the following season.
Very good points. Very good.
Well,
one name I'll throw out there is
sure.
Shamar Jean Charles.
Okay.
Small school player from Appalachian State, but was a major shutdown corner for Appalachian State. A little undersized, and I think he's listed at 5'10", maybe 5'11", which probably means he's like 5'8". But he was good at Appalachian State, and hopefully this year we'll be able to see another, like you said, a sophomore leap out of another young player.
Okay. Well, my name that I'm going to throw out for the defense also is in the secondary that I think could surprise some people is Green Bay's 7th round draft pick, safety out of Iowa State, Anthony Johnson Jr. I really, really, really like this kid. Extremely versatile, 6 foot, 205 pounds. Excuse me. Not an enormous safety, but can play the safety role and can step down to cornerback when he needs to as well. They love this guy coming out of Iowa State. He was on the field all the time for Iowa State, was a game changer for Iowa State, played some good teams there in the Big 12. But Anthony Johnson Jr., when I saw that he was still on the board in the 7th round and we got him, I was like, what, he wasn't picked 2 rounds earlier? I knew he wasn't going to be a first or a second rounder, but
Sure.
I would have thought Anthony Johnson would have gone well before the 7th round. And the fact that he fell all the way to us in round 7, at the very least, his rookie season, he's a nice piece for special teams coordinator Rich Bisaccia.
Assistant head coach.
I stand corrected. Assistant head coach and special teams coordinator.
Got to give him those titles,
Absolutely. We all like our titles. Well, the title for the offense this year is unknown. That's kind of where we're at with that. Now, we know a couple of things. We know we got a couple of really nice pieces in the running back room with Jones and Dillon.
Yes.
And also, again, another late round draft pick, Lou Nichols, who for Central Michigan, all he did there was the offensive player of the year for the Mid-American Conference. So this kid, Lou Nichols, is as good of a pass catcher as he is a runner. And they got him in the 7th round as well. And for us to get the offensive player of the year out of the MAC all the way in the 7th round, I think is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, can always use running back depth. So
Goodson's having a nice camp too, from what people have said.
yes,
Goodson's been looking sharp, and they've been talking a lot about we can deploy him as just a weapon because Goodson's one of those
yep.
guys that has
I've
a
been
lot of
reading a lot about
versatility.
that.
Whether you're going to use him in sweeps or something like that.
Yeah, could see a
The
lot of wheel
other
routes out of the
area on the
backfield.
offense that I think, yeah. The other area on the offense that I think is pretty solidified up is the offensive line. I
Yeah,
think the depth of that unit, especially when healthy, they will be able to, especially when you go into those, you get close to the goal line and you add a sixth or a seventh offensive lineman. They have the ability to do that because they have ones that are just that good.
well, and that big, that's to me, that's where you should be bringing in like a Yash Nima, and putting him on the end as like a second tackle. But
Oh, absolutely.
I'd rather see Tom starting over Yosh. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, I love that you brought up Zach Tom because he's kind of my current favorite piece to talk about on the offensive line because Zach Tom last year came in and was Mr. Versatility on that offensive line. Zach Tom can literally play any of the five spots on the offensive line. He's listed as a tackle guard out of Wake Forest, but he's also taken snaps at center for the Packers. Not in an actual game yet, but in practice. So Zach Tom can literally do it all. Very agile for obviously an offensive lineman, but when you talk about offensive linemen, you always say, I want to get my best five out there. You always want to get your best five out there. I think Zach Tom is one of the best five.
Okay.
I mean, when no, 1 and 2 are pretty easy. That Big Dave and Elgin Jenkins. That's one
Yep.
and two.
Yep.
Dave has been a perennial Pro Bowler. Elgin Jenkins is a newcomer to Pro Bowler talk, but he's definitely right there. And then I would, in my ranking system, I would have John Runyon the second, our right guard, as probably our third best offensive lineman. And then there's talk of okay, you got Myers at center. You've got either Tom or Nyman at the other tackle position. You've got Hansen as a backup center who's gotten a lot of snaps. Royce Newman, who's also played a lot of starting snaps for Green Bay, actually ended up being a starter and then got beat out.
Yes.
So it's a very competitive room. And then we had discussed about the couple of other tackles that just haven't gotten a lot of time that I think we'll see a lot in preseason. And one of them is Rasheed Walker, 3-year starter for Penn State, who was a late round draft pick last year. And then an absolute monster, the 6'9", 370-pound Caleb Jones out of Indiana University.
Yeah.
He's an absolute beast. Those guys help to round out a room that we're also going to see, and we talked about this on previous video as well. Sean Ryan,
Yes.
I believe out of UCLA, if I'm not mistaken,
Correct.
third round draft pick. And like I said in that previous episode, you don't draft an offensive lineman in the third round as a depth chart piece. If you're going to use a third round pick on somebody, you're going to want them to develop into a starter. So the talent again is there. I told you before, I thought that their starting five, I think Detroit is just a smidge above Green Bay, but the depth, I think Green Bay's got Detroit on the depth all day long. If Detroit loses one or two pieces, they're in trouble. Green Bay could lose one or two pieces and still have a very good offensive line.
Absolutely. I don't have anything to add for that.
Who's your favorite who's your favorite up and coming piece on the offensive line?
I'd like to see more out of was it Sean Ryan there from UCLA?
Yeah, he didn't play last year because of the
because of
suspension.
this.
So
Yep.
he hasn't even taken the field yet.
Nope. I like the potential in him. Luke Tenuta out of Virginia Tech. He's another young tackle,
Yep.
but we seem to be pretty stacked at tackles with Yosh Neiman and you know uh, obviously Bakhtiari. There's depth at tackle, so I don't know if they're going to maybe kick Tenuta inside. But like you said, Caleb Jones is just a monster. I mean, that just size wise, that he's just so intriguing to me. I mean, 6'9", 370. That is a massive man. If his
Yeah.
feet get better, his
Oh,
footwork improves over last year's spring training. Well, I can't say spring training, but over his last year's training camp, I could definitely see him moving up to maybe number 2 on the depth chart. And like you said, in goal line situations, could you imagine bringing that big boy in?
hell, throw
Whew.
him at fullback.
Oh, yeah, Refrigerator Perry.
Yes. He's way bigger than refrigerator. Fridge was a big guy. He wasn't 6'9", 370.
No, no. He might have been 370, but, well, he might have been 370, but might have been listed at like 330, kind of like Gilbert Brown, back in his
Oh
heyday.
yeah, Gravedigger.
350. Come on.
Yes, no, Gravedigger was 400 pounds if he was an ounce.
Yeah.
So now comes the fun part. The weapons are young. The deliverer of the weapons is young and has question marks. Um, this is a really tricky needle to thread for Green Bay because, again, we're not talking about no talent. We're not
No.
talking about the Bears' defensive line here. Sorry, Matt, that's a shot to one of our buddies, big Bears fan. Yeah, I don't know how the Bears are going to get pressure on anybody with their front four. That's not the issue when it comes to the Packers' pass-catching skill positions. They spent a second and a third rounder on a couple of nice pass-catching tight ends.
Yep.
They have another tight end who's been there for a few years, who's now going to play his more natural role of fullback and H-back, and that's Josiah DeGuara.
Yeah.
I would say with young talent, Green Bay's as loaded as anybody at the wide receiver position. Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and Jaden Reed are young, but could be one of the most explosive receiving groups in the National Football League. Could be.
Hey, on paper.
On paper. If they aren't, it's not due to athletic ability. Romeo Doubs runs great routes, has terrific hands, makes catches that might remind you of someone else that used to play here. Christian Watson is, I would say, going all the way back to, I don't know, who do you say? Sterling
Lofton?
Sharp, maybe?
Yeah.
What's that?
I was going to say Lofton.
Yeah, I mean, when's the last time Green Bay has had the physical freak at wide receiver that Christian Watson is? I mean, we've had some really nice ones. We've had Antonio Freeman. We have had Jordy Nelson. We have had James Jones. We have had Javon Walker. We have had some nice receivers in there, but that 6'4", 220 pounds, one of the fastest guys in the NFL, uses his body to box out as well as he uses his legs to get down the field. I mean, he, like I said in a previous video, he could be our Justin Jefferson. And then we talked about some of the guys on the depth. Samori Toure added 10 pounds and has had some really nice voluntary and mandatory mini camps this year. Like I said, he was beating some of those nice cornerbacks we were talking about, and they're really good
pretty badly from what I read too.
Yeah, he beat Jair once. So, and then you have some guys like Dontavian Wicks and and Malik Heath that were extremely good college players that are already passing up, guys like Cotton and Melton on the depth chart. So, and training camp has just started. So the youth movement is on in Green Bay. And I know I already brought them up once, but I'll bring them up again. Musgrave and Kraft at tight end. There's nothing to not like about either one of them when it comes to what their potential is at the tight end position. So
I agree with you completely, but I really like that you used potential.
Correct. And I use that because of my expertise on leading into something else. And I'm going to let you start off talking about this because I know we don't always see eye to eye on the quarterback position in Green Bay. So all of this depends on
Jordan
one
Love.
guy, and he wears number 10. To be fair, he's earned some respect because they just refer to him as number 10 now in the locker room, which is a form of endearment. When you just start getting called by your number, you've gained some trust. Now, gaining trust and performing on the field against competition on Sundays are two different things. That trust can go away really quick if the performance doesn't match the leadership in practice. So, Casey, Jordan Love, the floor is yours.
The kid's got all the potential in the world. He's got all the arm talent in the world. Is it there mentally? I don't know. We saw him play against Philly, and he looked great against Philly. If we get that Jordan Love, I think we're a playoff team. If we get the Jordan Love that filled in for Aaron Rodgers in that COVID game against the Chiefs, who couldn't beat a cover zero blitz, we're in for a long season.
Yeah, with no fans in the stands.
Right.
or barely any.
I don't know how hard it is to realize that they're blitzing everybody and covering nobody, and all you really got to do is throw it to a spot because you know where the routes are going. You had your receiver. Granted, he was earlier in his career, so maybe it was just pressure, and he didn't look good at all versus that, in that game versus Kansas City. But
his footwork was just awful. Everything about it looked sloppy.
Yeah, and versus the Eagles, he looked much more poised, much more comfortable in the pocket. He seemed to have a better grasp of the offense, a better understanding of the routes that the wide receivers are running and the way the defense is positioning and playing against that. Now, granted, Philly was playing a soft coverage zone, so underneath routes are going to be there. Well, and they still were. But
right. But it wasn't by 40. And to be fair, they did have at least 4 pass rushers in every scenario.
Yep.
Which means there were 7 guys in coverage. They were still getting 4 after the passer, and there were 7 guys in coverage. And Jordan Love would have had 2 more catches and possibly another touchdown, but there were some drop balls.
Yes.
His best pass of that game was a gorgeous back shoulder throw that Aaron Jones just dropped.
Correct.
That was his best pass that I've ever seen him make, and it was, may I say, Rodgers-esque. Because like you said, he's got all the arm talent in the world.
Yep.
That was a gorgeous back shoulder throw, and it just hit Jones in the chest, and he dropped it. But he was now, and I guess this is the one area where I kind of take issue. And look, I have had my doubts as well, but there are so many, and I'm not saying you in particular, my friend, but even the talking heads out there, everybody is so willing to etch that Kansas City Chiefs game in stone as this is what he is. This is what he is, the guy he was against the Kansas City Chiefs. Don't you worry about that Eagles game. That was a fluke. And I'm thinking, When have we ever done that before? Okay, so the game that he played a couple of years ago matters, but his most recent performance doesn't, when you can clearly see the footwork from one game to the next, 100 times better. His reads, he was going through his progressions. Holy crap, his release.
Yeah.
That release turned into like a rubber band snapping.
And he throws a nice ball.
Yes, he does. He throws a very, very pretty, catchable ball, and man, he can laser it when he wants to. There's a lot of things that at this point in his career, he doesn't even come close to being as good as Aaron Rodgers at. Arm strength ain't one of them. Jordan Love's got a monster hooked up to his shoulder. Can he make the right decisions? Now, I think a lot of the reason a lot of people say that Eagles game had to be a fluke was because of how bad he looked against the Chiefs that day. But as I'm going to allude to, and you're going to know where I'm going with this, something changed. Something happened between the Kansas City Chiefs game and the Philadelphia Eagles game. Tom Clements came back to the team. And a lot of people hear that and they go, what? I mean, what's the big deal? Well, Nathaniel Hackett, who left and went and became the head coach at Denver and it was a disaster and is now the offensive coordinator for the New York Jets, was the quarterback's coach at the time. But people forget that Tom Clements used to be the quarterback's coach early in Aaron's days. And Aaron swears by Tom Clements. Literally lobbied to get him back every bit as much as he lobbies to get Randall Cobb.
Yes.
And Green Bay went out and got him.
Yes.
So when you look at, and I would say Tom Clements definitely falls into that quarterback whisperer category. So when I hear people say, oh, well, there's no way Tom Clements can fix Jordan Love or get him better, that Philly game's a fluke. Really? Because I seem to remember a guy by the name of Jalen Hurts getting benched in the national championship game for Tua Tagovailoa. And then last year he was starting in the Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, what happened? Because he used to be the second guy on the depth chart in Philadelphia under a previous regime. And then all of a sudden, a guy by the name of Shane Steichen got a hold of Jalen Hurts. Shane Steichen is now the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, who just drafted another physically impressive guy in Anthony Richardson. And I'm pretty sure him being the head coach and Richardson being their first-round draft pick was not by accident.
No.
Shane Steichen got Jalen Hurts to clean up his mechanics and his fundamentals, and now Jalen Hurts is a relatively good passer of the football to go along with his absolutely freakish ability as an athlete.
Well, let's go back even further. You bring in Aaron Rodgers when you have Brett Favre as your quarterback, and
Sure.
Rodgers was out of the Tedford system. Well, Tedford's got the ball up here every time for the quarterback to throw it. Shortens his motion, so it gives your DBs less time to react. But it's not really a natural throwing position.
Right.
And that was a knock on Rodgers. In the first couple, I think probably the first 2 years that he was the backup for Favre, he still kind of held it up here the majority of the time. And then they got him to relax and bring it, more chest, not up here on the shoulder. And then when he replaces Favre, I think everybody knew he was going to be good after watching him fill in for Favre in that Dallas game.
Yeah, he played extremely well for the Cowboys there. And even the year that he was the starter, the first year when they only won 6 games, you knew it wasn't because of Rodgers.
No, I mean,
you're like, we've got another franchise quarterback here if we can clean up the rest of the team. And 2 years later, Green Bay won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So obviously they cleaned up the rest of the team and got it where it needed to be. Another good example, who would have thought Daniel Jones would become a $40 million a year quarterback.
I think that's insane.
I do too, because I remember Daniel Jones in his first couple years with the Giants. Remember last year was a make it or break it year for Daniel Jones? And all of a sudden, Daniel Jones played really, really well last year.
Yeah.
Well, who's the Giants' new head coach? Brian Daboll. For those people who don't know who Brian Daboll is, most people thought Josh Allen in his first year in Buffalo was hot garbage. They thought he was going to be a bust. And then Brian Daboll gets a hold of him. Josh Allen then turned into Josh Allen. And to emphasize that even a little bit more, after Josh Allen being without Brian Daboll last year,
came back to the pack.
Yeah, the last half of the season last year, you saw a little bit of digression, it seems like, with Josh Allen. His fundamentals started looking sloppier. Do we all think that's just an accident? As his fundamentals are looking sloppier, Daniel Jones' fundamentals are starting to get really good. Daniel Jones was always a good athlete and can run the football from the quarterback position. All of a sudden, he starts making good decisions in the pocket? When the hell did that happen? Well, Brian Daboll got hold of him.
But it certainly didn't hurt that he had Saquon Barkley back this year either.
No, that didn't hurt him at all. And, Brian Daboll did a good job of putting that all together as the head coach. But you could definitely tell a change in the fundamentals and the confidence of Daniel Jones on the field last year.
Yeah, confidence level for sure.
He's definitely a starting caliber quarterback, and someone thought he was worth $40 million a year. Now, I wouldn't have paid him that much, but hey, it's a quarterback-driven league, and the guys in the room looked around and said, hey, who else is around right now that is this young and this talented that has Daboll as his head coach that we can get? Probably not a whole lot, not a whole lot of people. So we're going to pay this kid, and as long as Daboll is in his ear, he's got the athletic ability and at least a certain amount of football common sense to deliver quite a few victories for us.
Yeah, he beat the Packers in
Absolutely.
London.
Absolutely. Now, I think we shot ourselves in the foot by not running the football that game as much as we should, but anyway, I digress. But back to Tom Clements. You see the fundamentals of Jordan Love greatly improved to that Philadelphia Eagles game. And
yes.
You've heard the players in the locker room talk about that, the leaps that he has made now in the last couple of years since Tom Clements has been there. And they said that the leap this offseason, if you talk to guys like Aaron Jones and Jair Alexander, they're like, if you thought that Philly game looked special, y'all ain't seen nothing yet. And I tend to believe them. I know that's hype because they're his guys. They're not going to say, oh, no, we're going to be crap.
Right.
But when you look at some of the other guys that Tom Clements turned into Pro Bowlers, like Tommy Maddox and Cordell Stewart and Elvis Gerbach, those guys without Tom Clements were dumpster fires as much as they were good quarterbacks. But when Tom was in their ear, they performed really well. And, if that's what Jordan Love needs to get him to the next level, I'm fine with that. Young people always need more guidance than the 35-year-old does.
Yeah.
Tom and Aaron don't need guidance at this stage in their career. Of course, Tom's retired now, but obviously a lot of these guys are like, okay, I learned what I needed to learn from the great coordinator or coach or what have you, and now he's good to go. Jordan Love is still in that stage where he's like a piece of clay. He can be formed, and as you alluded to earlier, there's all the talent in the world there. It's just a matter of I've got to see it. I got to see it on the field.
Yep, and I think he could show us that very early in training camp. If he comes out and just straight balls in game number 1, don't even bother with game 2 or game 3.
Right. Yeah, I think that now I'm a little more bullish on Jordan Love than you are. I think I'm a little more confident that he's going to be what we want him to be. Um, I don't know if that might be, I probably is part homer in me, but you're as big of a homer as I am, and you're not bullish on it. You're, I don't know if I'm 51% and you're 49% or where we're out on there, but it's a little different than 50-50, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
I think that with the coaching because it's not just Tom Clements, he has an offensive head coach in Matt LaFleur that's from the Sean McVay / Kyle Shanahan coaching tree that, for the most part, hasn't run his offense exactly the way he wanted it to. But Jordan Love knows the offense. They joke, they said Jordan probably knows the offense better than Aaron because Aaron changed so many plays. Aaron's like, hey, I'm Aaron Rodgers and I'm going to come out here and I'm going to win this football and I'm going to win the game. And it's very difficult to argue against him because we've seen it happen so many times. So I don't even blame Aaron for that. I think that this was kind of the plan all the way along when they started drafting a little differently a few years ago. When you get Jordan Love and you pick up an AJ Dillon and you start getting more tight ends and stuff. It's like, wait a minute, it almost feels like we're drafting for a different offense than the West Coast offense now. And I think that's what they did. They haven't come out and said that's what they did. They came out and they said, no, we back Aaron Rodgers 100%. We want him to stay forever.
Yeah.
But no brand new general manager and no brand new head coach want to take someone else's victory and then try to claim it as their own. You get called Barry Switzer for that.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. And so everybody wants to put their own stamp on things. And I think this has been a plan in motion for a long time. And this is the first year that we're going to see it kind of come to fruition as far as what they really want to do with this offense. I think you're going to see more misdirection. You're going to see more sweeps. You're going to see an offense that looks a little bit different, probably a lot more like the one you see in San Francisco. Do they have the players in the skill positions to be able to do that offense? I don't know. Maybe. I also think you're going to see a much heavier dose of the run game.
I'll be all right.
We talked about that New York Giants game. In the second half, for whatever reason, Green Bay just stopped running the football. They were dominating that game in the first half. The Giants couldn't stop the run.
No.
They were hammering them with both Jones and Dillon, and they didn't have an answer. But then we watched the second half, and it's like, wait a second, why are we passing on first down all of a sudden now? And I don't know if that was LaFleur. I don't know if that was Rodgers, a mixture of the two. I have my own opinions. I also have my doubts. But I think that you're going to see a guy under center this year that is going to run the offense more than anything else. And if he does, and they use that running game, I think that he is uber talented, and he's going to be able to take that next step. Excuse me. But we haven't seen it yet, and that's going to be the big question mark.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I think, let's be real. The best friend for a quarterback is a great running game, and we've got the O-line to block. How many years in a row have these guys blocked for 1,000 yards with Aaron Jones? And Jones is vastly underrated. AJ Dillon come in for a change of pace and just beat you down. Then you throw in two tight ends. I can't see the reason to draft two tight ends unless you plan on running a two tight end set. So to me, I totally agree. I think you're going to see a much more run heavy offense. And when you do pass, you're going to see the misdirection. Whether that's still going to work, because really we haven't seen that in a couple of years. San Francisco still does it, but the Rams were really heavy on that a couple of years ago, and I don't feel like last year that it was as prominent for them. But like you said, it could be because they were missing, the personnel to do that.
Right.
I think where you're more bullish on the quarterback, I may be more bullish on the talent that we have on the offensive side of the ball to accomplish all of those things that LaFleur probably wants to do. Now we just need to make sure that the quarterback can get it done.
Right. Well, if if there's one thing that I really really like is the potential to have matchup problems. Not only do you have a very nice shifty scat back like Aaron Jones, you have a power back like AJ Dillon to change it up, and Dillon isn't slow.
No.
Dillon actually in a straight 40 time, Dillon's a little bit faster than Jones. It doesn't look like it on tape though because Jones is so quick. Jones is so quick and so shifty. The other thing I like, Christian Watson, 6'4". Luke Musgrave, 6'5". Tucker Kraft, 6'5".
6'5".
Imagine a couple of you get into those double tight end sets, and then you have Watson out at flanker. You've got three guys on the field that can just jump ball it.
Yep.
How many defensive backs do you know are 6'4", 6'5"? And you don't. I mean,
maybe.
I have a funny feeling with where they were drafted in 2 and 3. Matt LaFleur has every intention of getting them on the field together quite a bit, along with Watson on the field, because holy matchup problems, Batman.
Well, just
you
think
throw
about
all three of them out there.
Well, and you can, like you're saying, you can use them in passing downs, but that creates so much of a mismatch and matchup problems for a defense. You come out and you've got two tight ends set. You got Watson. You're probably going to have Jones or Dillon in the backfield. Let's just go with Jones. So he can run. He can catch. You got now. Are we looking at a balanced set? So we're going to have a tight end on each side. Are we going to have a heavy set where we got two tight ends on one side? I mean,
Yeah.
The balanced set is just going to cause confusion because you can set your play to run either left or right, and it shouldn't matter.
Right.
Then you can call the flip in at the line, and nobody's going to move. So now the defense is like, oh, is this a fake call? Are they really flipping it? Are we going to go the other side? Are we not? I don't know. And then who knows? It could end up being a pass.
Absolutely.
Oh, and then to think about the two of them, 6'5" tight ends on the same side of the O line. Good Lord, man.
Right.
That's nightmare.
If you're a defensive coordinator, those are the types of sets that keep you up at night.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have, like you said, nobody's got 6'5" corners. You might have a 6'3", maybe. Wasn't Kevin King 6'3"?
Yeah, he was our tallest for a while.
So, but 6'5"?
Right. Well, and to go along with that, if it does end up being a pass play and you have both those tight ends on the field along with Watson, you're going to have at least one, if not two other wideouts on the field as well. You're going to have Daubs out there.
Mm-hmm. Who's also 6'3", 6'4"?
I think Daubs is 6'2", and Jaden Reed is smaller, but he's our slot. So you get Jaden Reed on the field. What my point is with this is you're going to end up in a situation, if you run this offense correctly, you're going to end up in a situation where you're going to need to put a linebacker on Musgrave or Kraft.
Good luck.
And that just ain't going to work.
Good luck.
Yeah, that's just not going to work. They have drafted in such a way that they have automatically, before the first snap of the season, become a matchup nightmare problem. Yeah. Again, all of it depends on number 10.
I'll predict it right now. First play of the game versus the Bears for the Packers offense, it's going to be a run to Aaron Jones.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Going out on a limb here.
Yeah. I think that they're going to run the football. They're going to run it a lot. They've got the guys to do it. I think Green Bay this year, if number 10 is who I think he is, I think they're going to get quite a few wide open touchdowns in the passing game because their play action is going to be lethal. With the running game that they have and the speed that guys like Watson have, and some of these tight ends who are going to get matched up on linebackers, you're going to see, you're going to hear these announcers, the Joe Buck or whoever's calling the doggone game, there's nobody within 10 yards of them. It's just because when you have to guard that kind of talent or prepare for that kind of talent, it makes it really difficult.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And if we have the Christian Watson that we had the second half of the season, starting from week 1, oh, brother.
Oh, yeah.
I really look forward to it because I hope that I'm wrong about number 10.
Right.
Coming out of the draft, I was high on him. I thought he was going to be the perfect backup for Rodgers because he had all the intangibles. He's mobile. He can throw from, off platform. His arm is just crazy good, but he didn't really show it to me against Kansas City. And, yes, I was impressed with him versus the Eagles, but I have to take it with a grain of salt and look at the way that the Eagles were playing defense. So yeah, they're rushing 4, but
sure,
everything underneath and
was
credit,
open.
yes, but credit to him for taking what the defense was giving him. Didn't force it, didn't have any issues with interceptions. So we'll see.
Which let's face it, he didn't take what the defense gave him against the Chiefs.
No, he
did a zero blitz, and he couldn't find anybody when people were open. He didn't miss the open guys this time.
Right.
He, like you said, he took what the defense gave him, and we'll have to see on that. Casey, we're running a little long here. So we're gonna probably cut it here, but I think that we had a fun time with this. I tell you what, if Jordan Love ends up being what I think that he could be, Bears fans are just going to retire because as a Bears fan,
ownership.
Oh, as a Bears fan, this would just be the most unfair thing ever. I can only imagine, Matt, if Jordan Love ends up being the first round talent that Green Bay thought he was when they drafted him, Matt's just going to start watching soccer more or something like that because
we can convert him.
3 of them in a row for 15 years at a time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's half a century's worth of ass whoopings if you're a Bears fan, and that's just not fair. We'll have to see how it goes. I am extremely excited to see this next chapter in the Green Bay Packer annals of history. And Aaron Rodgers, please don't get hurt this year.
Yes, we need you to play 65%.
Play 65% of the snaps, please. So. All right, Casey, it was great talking to you. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in to Sonship Sports again. Remember, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment. We are going to be doing the AFC East on Tuesday night. That'll drop. This video will drop either later tonight or sometime tomorrow. But thank you again for tuning in. And this is Chris and Casey signing off. See you next time.